Hi, I'm Chris from Game Tester. In this video I'll show you how to get started and set up your account once you've registered on Game Tester, and I'll go over the process of setting up and running a test, and finally looking at the reports at the end. So this is the dashboard that you will see after registration, and there's a few steps to finalize the setup. And if you go into account details here, we'll ask you to enter the details of your studio and address, and lastly here, upload some images of your studio, which will update this section up here. Now, if you want to share access to this account with other users, you don't need to all create separate accounts. You'll have one studio account, and then from here you can invite a user. It's not available on this account, but you would just enter their email address. That will send them an email notification that they've been invited to join the accounts, which they can then click on and set up their own credentials. So everyone will have their own account and their own credentials, but they'll all share access to the individual accounts. And you can see the status of them here and decide to remove users or remove an invitation. We have a API that you can use to create projects. This is especially useful if you start using our platform a lot. Every couple of days you need to run tests, and you would like to connect via API. Then we also have this option here, and we have documentation on how that works from this page here. And then lastly is credit, and I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail later on, and the pricing of tests and how you can pay for them through the platform. Okay, so once they've all been added, you'll see on the main dashboard some green ticks to say everything's set up and we are ready to go. So to start setting up a test, it's as simple as clicking here, and then you'll enter the name of the test. Now we can have templates created in advance to help speed up that process, which I'll go over shortly. And if you would like to select a template, then you can do that from here. Now to save time, I will load a test that's already been or is in the process of being created, and you can view those by going to Tests and Create. And here you'll be able to see any tests that are currently in the setup phase here. Now if I click into one of these and go on to the first step, this is the test setup wizard. And this is what you'll see when creating a test on the platform, and the steps that you'll need to go through in order to complete that process. So you can see down here, these are the individual steps, and you'll work your way through these one at a time until you have a green tick, and then you know that step is complete, and you can move on to the next one. So I'll quickly go through these now so you can see the options for yourself and how this process would be completed from start to finish. So test name there's a couple of fields here. So firstly, the name of your test, this first field here is what is shown to testers when we send our invitations out. This is what they will see in their platform. So don't use anything here that you don't want them to see, anything that's super confidential or just doesn't need to be shared, such as build versions or anything like that, or even the real test name you could use here, and maybe the project name up here. So you've got an internal name for your own reference, which is not shared with testers, and then the main test name, which is. You then select the type of test you would like to run. So if your test has any gameplay element to it, where you need the tester to interact, then select this option here. If maybe you would like to capture feedback on a game, but there's no gameplay element, so maybe you need feedback on concepts or designs or artwork or storylines or concept documents or anything like that that's not actual, doesn't actually involve gameplay, and then you would select this option here. If it's more general market research, so not about a specific game or project, maybe you just want to understand current trends, current interests, general sentiment out there from gamers, then you can select this market research option. And the main thing that will change, you'll see down here, these options will change depending on the type of test you wanted to run. So here it allows you to create a survey profile, here it allows you to create a game profile. So that's the only difference. You can come back here and change these later on if you wish, but we'll stick with gameplay for now. Most of the other steps will remain the same. Now, if you are testing a game, the next step will ask if you would like to integrate our API or not. Now, this is an optional API integration, but it does allow your game to connect to our platform and share data points, which will allow us to track, what are the testers doing in your game, which points have they reached, what have they done, and that can all be shown and reflected in your reports. And I'll show you how that data looks and is presented when we get to the reports. We've got lots of guides here on how to integrate the API and some video guides and PDF documents, so feel free to read those from this page here. At this point, you're just saying, would you like to integrate the API or not? You don't need to do anything technical at this stage. Of course, if you decide to integrate the API, there will be a process your side to actually integrate that, which may take a day or two to do. But for now, we'll select without. Next, you select a game profile, so the actual game you would like to test, and you may have several games in development, or you may have tested games previously in the past, so you may see different options here. If I go into one of these, you will see this is essentially a profile page that builds your game and shows what it is. So if you've got a description here, any system requirements, any imagery, this is where you'll add it. Now this will be used to form part of our invitation to a project when we're trying to attract testers to this project. This is what they'll see. You can decide when you show this information. We can lock it and hide it until an NDA is signed and agreed, or we can show it upfront in advance. You've got full control over that. But this is the project that will need to be built for each game, and then you save this and it will be saved in the platform. The good thing about this is if you are running multiple tests, then you don't need to create this profile every time. It'll be saved in your account and you can refer to it here. Okay, and that brings me on to confidentiality. So generally, most tests on the platform are strictly confidential. They are going to be for unreleased games, unannounced games, and we would like testers to sign an NDA. And you'll see on this page here, you've got some options that you can select from. Strictly confidential will alert testers that this is under NDA, strictly confidential, and they are required to sign an NDA. Now you've got a couple of NDA options here. You can use our own NDA, which is pretty comprehensive and detailed. I would say 90% of our clients use our own, but you are also welcome to use your own NDA, and you can either just copy paste it here, or you can upload an NDA file or provide a link to that NDA. So you've got different options there on how that's shared. But if you just pick us, then you don't need to enter anything else. This pop-up message is shown when they accept the test before they are taken to the NDA. It's to just remind them and reinforce that they are bound by the NDA. You can edit this text if you wish. If you'd like to add anything to this or make anything really clear, anything they can or can't do, then you are free to edit this yourself. And then you have two options here to when do they need to sign the NDA? Do they need to sign it before they can even view anything about the test itself, or do they just need to sign it before they can accept it, before we share any actual game files with them? This is generally the default. Ideally we like to show as much as possible in advance so we can attract the best testers in the platform. They can see what they're getting into before they accept. As a rule, we never share anything until they have signed the NDA, so we won't share any game files or any access to any content or documents or anything like that with this first option here. But if you want to fully lock it down, you can select this option here. Now, let's say the game is already announced or it's not so confidential, you're happy for them to share it. In fact, you may want to encourage sharing, then you can select this option here to let them know that, hey, this is no longer confidential. If you want to share this on social media and help promote the game, essentially, you've got that option and there's no additional cost for you. It's effectively just giving our testers permission to share what they see in the platform. They don't see that very often, so when they do see it, we often see some content off the back of that, so it is nice to use when possible. And then we have a kind of middle option, so maybe, hey, we're happy for you to share bits of the game, but please make it clear that this is a work in progress, for example. You can spell out exactly what they can and can't do at this stage here. If you don't even want to show an NDA or anything to do with confidentiality, then you can just stick non-applicable here. But we'll go with confidential first so I can show you kind of what that NDA process looks like at the end. Okay, we then enter a relatively short description for the test. So we don't need to go into too much detail here, but top line, what would you like testers to focus on during the test? Is there any elements maybe not to focus on? Areas there's issues with, you don't need tested. But hey, we would love your feedback and we would love you to find bugs or issues in this part of the game. Anything like that, anything that can help guide or direct testers and help them focus on what's important to you, this is where you can put it. Around this amount is generally a good amount or slightly more. And then the instructions are effectively what do they need to do to finish the test? What's the end goal here? Now this could just be as simple as play for a couple of hours, or maybe get to level 5, or reach a certain part in the game, and you can specify that here. And then ultimately, once they've done that, they can return to Game Tester to submit their feedback. So just make it really clear when do they need to finish, what do they need to achieve before they can come back and share their feedback here. Again, the shorter you can keep this, the better. And then duration is how long should this test take to complete. So whatever your instructions are and actual requirements to finish this test, how long roughly should that take an average user to complete? Now this doesn't need to be exact, it's an estimated duration. So if you set 1 hour, for example, ideally that some people might do that quicker than that, some people might take a little bit longer, but on average, if that's a realistic amount, enter that here. If you need to run the test over several days, then you can select this option here and say how many days you'd like to run it over, and what's the minimum duration you would like testers to test for, and whether you need them to do that every day or in total over that time period. So you can spread this over several days if you wish. But if you don't need to do that, then you can just untick and set an estimated duration to reach your requirements. This does come at additional costs, so bear that in mind. If you don't need to spread it out over a certain amount of days, then just leave this unchecked. Okay, and then test size is how many testers you would like to take part in the test. So this can be any number you like. Most of the tests on our platform are in the hundreds. That generally gives you some good results. But you can set this in the thousands or tens of thousands. It's up to you. And then you have an option to split this into multiple tests. So maybe you want to do A/B testing, for example, and you want to ask half of the testers one set of questions and another half a different set of questions. You can do that as well by selecting this. And then let's say we want to run 2 different types of tests. You can select this, and then you've got options here to do you want users to only do part A or part B, or can they do both, for example? So you can select whether they're allowed to do multiple tests or if they're only allowed to do a single test, for example. You've got options there. I'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to the actual questionnaire section of the test. Linked testers allows you to invite testers that you've brought to the platform yourself. So there's an option over here called Invite Your Testers, which I'll show you shortly after, where you can generate a referral link essentially and share that with your own crowd and bring them into the platform. So once you've done that, you'll see options here to essentially tell us how you would like to prioritize invitations. Do you only want to use your own testers, or would you like to have a mix essentially? Or would you like to prioritize yours and then fill any gaps with game testers at the end? So you've got lots of different options there on how and who you actually want to take part in your test. Okay, and then demographics allows you to select any filters, any demographic filters or groups that you would like to set up to really define who you would like to take part in these tests. Now we've got lots of different options in here, from ages, gender, country, languages they speak, type of gamer they are, how many hours a week do they game, that kind of thing, the game genre interests that they have. You can add as many filters as you like here by clicking Edit Filter and then going through these options and add in any filters that you wish. You can also split this up, so maybe you would like to have 50% of testers that are male and 50% that are female. You can just add another target group here, say how many of the testers you would like to be in this group, and then go in to gender, select female, and there we go. This would then be split 50-50, and you have precisely this amount of testers complete from this demographic group. So you can create different groups like that. If it's not essential that you have specific demographics, you can just select this pick for me option here. In general, we do recommend this because this means we're not restricting anyone on the platform, and we can focus on our highest tiered testers in the platform, essentially get you the best quality feedback possible by inviting our best testers that have proven themselves to give really constructive and helpful feedback. The more you filter, the more that restricts us and limits who we can actually invite to your task. So we do ask, if you do need to filter, try and keep those filters as few as possible. and only add essential ones that are absolutely required. And if they're not required at all, then we highly recommend just selecting this Pick For Me option, and that will just really help us to get you the best test as possible. Okay, now we move on to the questionnaire. So this is where we build the actual feedback form itself. Now when you first get here, you'll just see these options like this. And this allows you to, we've got a few options here you can build the questionnaire from scratch yourself. We've got some templates to help you if you're not too sure what to ask or how to set up and structure the questionnaire. We've got some templates to help you. We've got this option here just to start off by adding our top 10 questions, our most asked, most frequently used questions. Just add them straight away, and then you can either edit those or build from those. Or you can even just say, look, can you please do it for me? We just, you maybe just really don't know what to ask. You can select this option here. Tell us how many questions you would like to add. That's all we need to know. And then when you submit, we'll go in, we'll look at your description, we'll look at your requirements, what you're trying to get out of your test, what's important to you, and we'll go in there and build that questionnaire for you. We've done this hundreds of times. So we've got a pretty good idea of what makes good questions, what will give you good feedback, and how to structure that in the best possible way. So we're more than happy to do this. It doesn't cost you any extra. You just need to let us know how many questions you want to add. Generally would recommend around 20 as a minimum, but it's up to you how many you enter there. I think the actual minimum is 10, but otherwise you can enter. The more the better, essentially, is what we generally advise. But if you'd like to build it yourself, great. We've got lots of options, and we try to make that as easy as possible for you. So if you click Add Question here, you can see these are the types of questions that you can add. So you have a mix of multiple choice questions, drop downs, open text, sliders for rating things, for example. We can expand, so we can branch questions depending on how a question is answered. If they answer a specific way, you might want to branch and ask them some additional questions, for example. That's all possible, and I'll show you how that looks in a second. You can add labels, so if you need to add notes or guidance or instructions at any point, then that can be done with labels. And we can also ask users to upload files. So maybe they're reporting a bug and they need to share a screenshot or a video clip. That can all be done as well from this section here. If you want to know any more about any of these have got info cards here, which will give you some examples and show you kind of how it can work and give you some notes on things that you can and can't do with each of these options. But let's say you select one of these. You can just select this one here. That will then load it into the questionnaire, and we can then edit the question. We can edit the available answer options, and we can, if you need to move these around, you can just drag and drop. Same for the actual question itself. You can drag and drop if you wish to rearrange these. Now, depending on the question type, there might be different options down here. So if you can add it to your favorites, if it's a question that once you've built this out and you want to use it time and time again, you can add it to your favorites to save time in future tests. You'll have different advanced options here for different types of questions. So if I move to this step with some more options in here, we'll go to actually one with open text. So this one is asking users what they liked most about the game, and if we go to advanced options here, you can see we've selected some placeholder text, so this kind of text here that shows in this box and gives a little bit more guidance and instruction on what the user should type. And we've also set a minimum character count, so this ensures that we capture a minimum level of detail from users, and they have to type in at least 100 characters, for example. So you can set that. You can also set a maximum if you want them to keep it brief and concise. You can decide how much you're actually capturing at that point. You can add attachments, so if you need to share images, screenshots, video clips, anything like that, you can add attachments to any question that you like. You can change the question type, so if you want to change from radios to checkboxes, you can do that by selecting this option here. You can click this to move a question to a different step, so if you want to copy this or move, maybe you want to move it to a different step in the questionnaire, you can just do this rather than having to delete it and create it again from scratch. And then you've got a duplicate option here as well. If you just want to make a copy of this question, then it can be done very easily from this step here. And then you've got delete as the last one. So to show you some examples, so this is a mix of different types of questions we've got here, and if I switch to preview mode up here, this will present how it actually will look to testers, so you can see from their perspective what they will see when they're completing your questionnaire. And you can go through, you can select these and make sure these are working as you liked. You can see here we've added an attached image asking users to rate this interface, and below here they can provide their rating. So you can show images like this, you can show videos, we can show them as clickable icons to expand, or we can show them as full screen images like this. You've got full control over that. And then in the feedback section here, we've got a couple of different types of questions. So we have expandable question here. So and this is very typical, asking, did the user come across any bugs in their game? And if they didn't, then that's great, nothing else to ask. But if they did, you might want to ask, okay, can you provide details on the bug, explain what happened, how to replicate it, that kind of thing, and maybe attach a screenshot or a video clip to help us identify that bug. So you can check that that is working and that is branching off correctly, depending on the correct answer. These are the open text, so you can see here there's a minimum character count here, and it won't allow you to submit until you reach that minimum amount. All of these questions can be made mandatory or optional. So by default they're set as mandatory, but you can go into the question option here and just uncheck this, and it'll become a optional question. So essentially it can be skipped if you would like. If you would like these answer options randomized, so maybe you don't want to show them in the same order for every user, you can select this option here to randomize them, and every user will just see these in a different order. So if you had a long list of things, for example, maybe select your favorite character in the game, you could randomize that, and that just ensures that everyone's seeing a different list, and it just helps when you get your reports that there's no bias there at all. Okay, and then these different steps here, they help break up the questionnaire. So we do advise having no more than, I don't know, say 10 to 15 questions per step. It's not a solid rule, but generally you want to keep it to specific categories if you can. So if you've got different parts of the feedback, different parts of the game, then it's a good idea to break that down into steps and show them here. And give them relevant names. You'll see when a tester is completing the feedback, they can see the steps here and work their way through. Now, when it comes to attachments, you can see here this is an image that is attached, and if I go into the attached options, you can see the image here, and we can toggle whether we want to show this full size or not. So if I untoggle that, go to wait for that to save. By the way, this will auto save as you go, so you don't need to worry about clicking save. Any changes you make will save as you progress. So now it's not full size, but this can still be clicked. And if you uploaded several different images, you would see these as thumbnails, and you can click these and cycle through them. So this can be useful if you need to share multiple images or a mix of images and videos, for example, or documents or anything at all like that. You can show them as thumbnails like this as well. So it depends what works best for you, case by case. Now, templates are another option to help you. So if we go back to, I'm going to remove this question because you'll see this when you first get here, and you've got this option here to select a question. You'll also see the button up here, so you can select that on any step to see our templates. So if you click that, this will load. I think there's just short of 200 currently. We do add to this from time to time, so you may see this change. But this is just some general questions and popular questions that are used a lot in our platform. And you're welcome to scroll through these and find any that you like the look of. Then you can just click here, add it to your questionnaire. You can then, of course, make edits, make changes if you wish to, or delete it altogether. You've got full control at any point. These are all categorized, so if you have a specific thing you're testing, maybe you're trying to capture feedback on the storyline, you can filter the question templates by story to help you find the specific one that you want. And there's lots of different options here as well to filter by type of question, for example. So yeah, when you find one that you like, you can just click add here. You'll see it adds it as quick as that. And then again, you can edit any part of that when you wish. So yeah, that's the questionnaire. Make sure you preview it before you submit, just to make sure that it looks how you want it to look to a tester's perspective. Okay, and I just want to mention on the test size. So if you are splitting this, for example, and you're splitting it into two different tests, what that will do is it will split the questionnaire. So if you've got two steps here, and you split this into two different tests, then half the users will get the first one and half will get the second one. Now, if you wanted to have 2 steps for everyone, but you're doing A/B testing, for example, you could duplicate this step here and also duplicate this one, move them underneath each other. And if you had 4 steps in total here, then splitting the test in 2 would mean half would get the first 2 steps and the other half would get the second 2 steps. So if I duplicate that as well. So essentially you've got 4 steps, but you're splitting this in half by saying here that we want to split this into 2 different tests. You'll have 100 testers in total, so 50 would complete the first half and the other 50 would complete the second half. So bear that in mind. If you do want to split it, it will equally split the number of steps that you have in your questionnaire. So just make sure that's an equal number and make sure it's in the correct order. Okay. Next step is to set the dates of the test. So in most cases, you'll just want the test to start as soon as possible. In that case, just leave this selected here. Just to give you a general idea of timelines, once you submit a test for approval, we'll check it over, make sure everything's okay, make sure there's no major issues. Generally, that doesn't take more than a day or two to finish that process. As soon as we approve your test, then it will start essentially, and we'll start sending out invitations immediately. But if you need to, maybe you need to delay the start till a certain point in the future, you can select that here and select a date that you actually want the test to end. So maybe you've got a strict deadline, for example, that you need to let us know about, then you can select this option here. You may even have a strict time that you need it to end. So don't select these unless you have them, because we will in most cases always by default try to end the test as soon as possible. But if there is a date or time that is critical for you, then enter it here, and it's good to let us know about that. And then finally, if you need to run the test at a specific date or time, so a concurrent test, maybe it's a multiplayer test or a server load test, then you can select this option here and actually pick a date and time you would like the test to run. Now, we do need a little bit of notice for these, depending on how big the test is, but generally as a minimum 2 to 3 days before the test actually starts. So just make sure you're selecting a date in the future and not a date for today or tomorrow, for example. That won't give us enough time to review and invite people to that task. But the more notice you can give us, the better. So if you can give a week or even 2 weeks, that's fantastic. Just means that we can prepare our testers, give them more advanced notice, and help secure and lock in more of our higher ranking testers for that test in particular. So yeah, the more notice you can give, the better. For tests that you require to start ASAP, we don't need to be given any notice at all. We'll just start that as soon as we can after the testers have been approved. Okay, and then next steps are, what would you like us to show testers after they have accepted the test, they've signed the NDA, they've been officially approved to be part of that test. So essentially how to access the game, how to access any files that you need them to, and what you'd like to show them at that point. So generally, if you can give them a step-by-step process of what to do, so if they need to redeem a key on Steam, tell them how to do it from here. If they need to enter a beta branch code, for example, tell them what that is here, and then just what they need to do to finish the setup process. If you need them to redeem a key, then select this option here. If they need to enter a beta code, select this option here and enter that code. So this will all help how we present that information in the invite, which we'll show you in a second. If they need credentials to access the game, to access a specific account, again, you can select this here and add those. If you need them to download any files at this point, so maybe this is a concept doc, or maybe it's instructions on controls or anything they need to be made aware of before they start the test, so you can select this option here. This will then open up a new step to upload files, which you can then go into and attach here. We'll only share these files once they've accepted and been approved. Same for all of these. So you can see here we've got keys selected here. If we go to the next step, you'll be able to see a list of keys that have been uploaded, which you can do from these sections here. You'll be able to see the status of those keys, so you can see which ones are still available, which ones have been allocated, and you'll be able to see how many keys we recommend that you upload from up here. So generally, we'll ask you for more keys than the actual testers. So for this test here, I believe it's 100. Yep. The system will recommend that you upload at least 150. and that is so we can replace any users that drop out or fail the test, and we need to replace them with new testers. We need additional keys to replace those people. So generally it'll ask you for around 20 to 50% more, depending on the size of your test, and there'll be a recommendation there. You can obviously upload more than that, and the more you can upload, the better. Once that test has finished, any keys that have not been allocated, you'll be able to export from here and reuse those for other purposes. So you'll never waste any keys in the platform, which is why it's always good to upload more to ensure we don't run out during that process. And then at the end, just export them and use them as you wish. You can also reuse them and reallocate them to future tests within the platform if you wish to. And then optional extras are any extra services. Maybe you require users to record gameplay during their test. Maybe you're restricting it to a small number of regions, for example. Maybe you need to conduct interviews. Maybe you'd like us to go in and set up and manage the test for you. These are all additional services with additional costs, which you can find out by clicking this More Info button here, and you'll be able to see a more descriptive instructions and what's involved in this extra and how much it will cost you to add this extra. So if you need any of these, then just check them at this stage here, and then that will update the costings at the end. If you don't need any of these, then you can just leave them unchecked. And then Boosters allows you to boost the rewards. So by default, we'll show you what the base reward amount is, so how much the tester is actually being paid to complete this task. You'll be able to see what this is. You won't be able to go lower than that, but you can boost it if you wish to. The benefits of this is it will help us attract those higher tier testers that ultimately, when they get invited to a test, it's up to them. They can decide whether they accept that test, whether they'd like to take part or not. And if the reward is quite low, then often they will skip that. They'll move on to something else, and so we'll have to invite lower ranked tests in the platform. So if it is important, maybe it's a small scale test, and you really want to attract the best testers possible, then you've got the option here to boost this reward amount to anything you like. And you'll be able to see here what the total reward is going to be per tester, and what that worked out in as an hourly rate, depending on how long you've set your test to be. You can also set a prize booster. So this will essentially be a prize that we issue to the top performers in the test. So when the test is finished and we're reviewing the feedback, we'll pick several winners, depending on who submitted the best feedback, who made the best effort, essentially, and we'll give them those prizes. So we've got some recommendations here that you can select depending on the size of your test. So if you're running a 100 user test, then we would generally recommend maybe having 5 winners, and would give those $60 each. But you can set a total prize budget here, decide how many prizes you want to get, and then we'll just divide that at the end and issue those prizes to the winners once the test is finished. So this can be a good incentive to make everyone try a little bit harder. If there's a prize at the end for who made the most effort, you've got that option to add this as well. Both of these are optional. You don't need to add these, and if you don't wish to, you can just select this option here. And that's pretty much the whole setup process. So once you've done all of that, you'll get to the summary page. You'll be able to review everything that you've entered so far. You'll be able to get a breakdown of the cost up here. And you'll be able to see a preview of the test invitation. So what is this actually going to look like to testers, and what will they see when an invitation goes out? So I'm just going to turn this into a normal test first, because in most cases this is how an invitation will look. So a tester will see this in their dashboard. They will click here, and this is essentially what the invitation will look like. So they'll get a description of the test, they'll get instructions, they'll get a game description, system requirements, and then at the top there they'll see how long they've got to complete the test, what the reward is for completing it, how much experience they'll earn, and how long is the estimated time to actually complete this test. So based on all of this, they can read this and decide whether they would like to accept or decline. And you can see at the bottom here, if they agree to the terms, they can click accept or decline here. Now this is a strictly confidential test, so if they click accept, they get this pop-up that we saw in the confidentiality step. If they're not happy with this and they decline, then they can't progress. They can't see any of the instructions or game files at that point. However, if they're happy with that and they click accept, that will then load the NDA. So this is the default game tester NDA. And if they confirm their signature on this, only at that point do we share the additional information. We'll also start a countdown timer, so how long they've got left to submit their feedback. We will generally define this when we go through that approval process. We'll look at the requirements of the test and decide realistic and fair time frame. Generally it's no more than 2 or 3 days, but you'll be able to see what this is at this stage here, and testers can clearly see how long they've got left to submit their feedback. Next steps are shown here. So this is the section that you entered here. So again, how to access the files, how to access the specific test build, anything you'd like them to know at this point, this is where it's shown. And then any keys they need, so if there's a game key here, if there's a beta code here, these are shown at this stage here, and they can just click these to copy them to the clipboard, so it's really easy for them to go and enter those. You then see when they scroll down, they've got a couple of options. So if they can no longer finish the test for whatever reason, they can click here to cancel. We do ask them to provide a reason why. Sometimes that's useful to know, and that will be shown in your reports. And then once this has got a minimum duration right now, so they won't be able to submit their feedback until that duration has passed. But once they do, there'll be a button here to complete their feedback. And then once they click that, it will take them to the questionnaire, and they'll enter their feedback and submit. That is a mandatory part of the test, so if a user does not go into the feedback form and submit all the mandatory answers, then they are not issued their reward. Eventually they'll be marked as a failed tester if their time limit runs out, which reopens their slot and allows us to invite someone else, and you don't pay for that person. So if you are asking for 100 testers, you know with confidence you will get 100 testers and they've all completed the feedback, and when you look at your report, you'll be able to see all of that in full. So yeah, that's good. It's good to get that tester's perspective and make sure you're happy with how it's all being presented to the users. Is it all clear? Does it all make sense? Are you happy with how this is all looking? And if you are, you go back to that summary page and hit submit. At that point, it will go into the approval process, like I mentioned. Sometimes it's the same day. Occasionally, it might take a day or two, depending on how complex the test is. But we'll aim to approve that as soon as possible, and then start the test on the date that you've selected. Okay, so that's the whole setup process. Now, a couple of other steps here that I think it's important to just quickly go over. So one of them that I mentioned during the setup is the ability to invite your testers. So if I go here, this will allow you to essentially create a link that you can share with your own users if you would like to bring them into the platform. Now, there's a couple of options here, so you can give this a name. This is just for your reference. Let's say you want to invite your Discord users. And you can enter Discord here, and then you can enter a name here. This is just adding it to the referral link here, so you can see what this will look like. Now you could just enter your studio name, or you could enter this is for GT, for example. It's up to you what you enter there, but that will build the URL. Once you click submit, that will then build that link. It adds a unique identifier at the end here, which you can then copy and paste and share that with your audience. This will then update, and you'll be able to see how many accounts have been linked to that, how many users have actually registered via this link. And then when you're setting up your test and deciding who you would like to invite, you've got a good idea of the numbers that are available here. Now, if you have any users that are already registered on the platform, there's probably a good chance that a lot of them are. When they click this link, it will detect they've already got an account, but they can still link their account to yours. So there's still that connection. They don't need to be brand new users, and if they're already registered on Game Tester, it doesn't matter. We'll still link them, and you'll be able to see here this number go up when those users are linked. So you can still invite them to your specific projects. So that's how that works. We've got a price calculator here as well. This will be the same as the price calculator we show on the website. So if you want to work out the price of any test, this is a really good place to start. Before you even make an account, you can go to the website, click pricing, and use our calculator here to work out based on how many testers you would like, how long the test is, and how many questions you would like to ask at the end, and whether it's concurrent or not, and whether you want to add any optional extras. For example, you can play around with these and work out what's going to be the total cost per tester, and what's your total cost going to be. So there shouldn't be any hidden costs or extras if you select all these and they're all accurate. This should perfectly match what you see in the platform. We've also got a calculator here that you can use if you decide. But once you get to that summary page, this should match exactly what you've entered. Okay, so let's look at the output of this. When you've actually got a test, it's submitted, it's running, and you want to see the feedback, you want to see the submissions. Now, this can all be viewed in a live environment, so you don't need to wait for the test to end. As soon as completions have happened and feedback has been submitted, you can view that in the platform. So you've got this option here to view all active tests, any tests that are running, and we can click here. And you'll see any tabs up here for any tests that are running, and you can decide which one you want to view. So in this example here, I'll quickly close this to go over the stats initially. So you'll be able to see how a test is running, so you can see what your target number of completions is, how many testers that you want to complete your test, how many have accepted that test so far, how many are currently testing. So if the test is ongoing and you've got users that have accepted your invitation but they've not yet started, you'll be able to see how many here. You'll be able to see how many declined. So this means they were invited. For whatever reason, they decided they didn't want to take part in the test. And we do ask them to share their reasons why they declined and share that with you. Sometimes that can be useful, but you'll be able to see the stats here. Cancelled means they did accept initially, but they later decided to cancel. Now that can be for a variety of reasons. Maybe there was a bug in the game they couldn't get past, or they just lost interest, for example. So there can be some useful feedback there that we also capture and show you. And failed means they ran out of time essentially. So they did accept the task. We've given them a time limit to complete it within, but they've got to the end of that time, and they've not submitted their feedback in time, so they've essentially failed that test, and we've reopened and offered that slot to someone else. So again, you can keep an eye on that. Now, I'll quickly switch to another report to show you some examples of these. So if you've got this eye symbol here to see the reasons given. So we can see here 3 people declined this test. And if we click here, we can see the reasons people have given. So here's just a mixture of, they didn't have enough time to do the task, or they would just like to offer it to someone else. That's very typical of what you would see. And then for cancelled, we had so someone had health issues here. That's that's going to happen occasionally. So they decided they would rather cancel the test halfway through. This user decided the reward wasn't worth it after accepting. That can happen. Obviously, if you stick with the base reward amount, occasionally people will drop out, or that can be a reason for declining it in the first place. And then you can see someone here had some technical issues actually installing the API, the APK. Which is really useful. Obviously, if they can provide more details on the specific device, then that's even more useful. But it's good to know that people had issues completing a test for whatever reason, whether that's technical or not. So this can be a good place. Sometimes this is more useful than others. It can be very useful going through these and seeing what people have said. For failed, we don't always get a reason, so you can see sometimes it'll be blank, but sometimes we do get a response. So in this example here, they're saying they couldn't get past a certain level, and there was a requirement in the test that they needed to get past this level to complete the test and submit their feedback, but they wasn't able to do that. So they should have cancelled, but sometimes users won't do that. They'll just run out of time without realizing. They'll get marked as failed, and we try to capture the reason why that is. So sometimes we don't always get that, but sometimes we do. It's definitely worth reviewing these and seeing what people have said. So that's those reasons. And then completed means they've fully completed the test. They've answered all the feedback, all the questions. They've completed all the gameplay if required. And ultimately, once that reaches your target, that's when the test will end. Available slots will be how many open slots there are currently. So especially when the test is running, you'll have slots still available. You can see how many of those have been filled, or is the test fully booked? Do we have currently all the slots that have been accepted? And then time limit is just a reminder of how long users have got from accepting that test to actually completing it. So if you've got no slots available and you can see 10 people are still completing the test, they should all be wrapped up within this time limit unless they fail or cancel, of course. Okay, so that's the stats. These will update in live time, so you can just refresh this page and see the latest stats at any time, and this will continue updating until the test ends. And then under that, we've got the actual feedback. So what have people submitted? And you can see by these charts here for multiple choice questions, you can hover over these and get the precise numbers. So this was just asking if they played the tutorial or not. And you can see here that 158 testers said they did, which was 62%. So it's really easy to see top line how people have responded to these. And then any open text questions where the user can free type their feedback will initially show you a word cloud like these, so you can see kind of top line what are the key topics, what are people talking about the most. And I think both of these questions are about the tutorial, so no surprise this is the biggest. But maybe there's something that catches your eye in here that you want to understand a little bit more. What are people saying about the enemies, for example? You can just click on any of these phrases and it will then load up any feedback that contains that phrase and read what people have said. And we'll also show sentiment scores here. So out of 10, is this more negative or positive? And we'll show red for negative and green for positive. So you can see at a glance, okay, there's some negative feedback here about the enemies. I want to see what it is and read that feedback in detail. Now there's a couple of other buttons on this screen that you might find useful. Let's say you're reviewing some feedback that you're finding really interesting and useful, and you would like to see how that tester has responded to the other questions on the questionnaire. Then we have this option here to view all feedback. And if you select that, this will essentially load up the questionnaire and you'll be able to read and review any open text responses or any multiple choice answers that specific user has given. And you can go through the steps here to read every part of the questionnaire all in one place, focusing on this one particular user, which can be useful when you'd like to see everything together and see other feedback that a particular user has given. And then lastly, if someone has gone really above and beyond and really helped you out and given really useful, detailed, really useful feedback, we have this reward tester option here. Now clicking this will bring up a dialog that will first allow you to select a message. So let's say their feedback was really helpful to you and you'd like to thank them for all the time and effort they made. You can select that and you can just select tip tester here without selecting a monetary amount. And that will essentially send a message to the user to say they've been recognized for their effort and they've been rewarded bonus XP to their account. Now XP essentially will boost their ranking in the platform, which means they will get invited to more tasks and tests, including yours. So you're more likely to get this tester again in future because they essentially are now higher in the ranks and they'll be prioritized when test invitations go out. So just doing that doesn't cost you anything and it's really useful to testers. They really appreciate it. So when someone has gone above and beyond, it's a really nice thing to do to help those guys out. Now you can also tip a monetary amount by selecting one of these or entering a custom amount here, and that will send them a payment as well as that XP boost, which will either come out of your balance credit if you have credit on the platform, or if you are set up for monthly invoicing, then it will just get added to your invoice at the end of the month. So you've got options there to tip with and without a monetary amount, but both have received very well, and it will directly help you by increasing the rankings of those testers and making it more likely that you get them in future. We'll also show you some top-line demographics as well, so country, age, and gender. This can be useful if you get a lot of negative feedback from a specific region, for example. You may decide, okay, this looks like some kind of regional or server issue rather than an overall game issue. It can make that very easy and clear to see without even reading the feedback. But it also helps you pinpoint and read the most important feedback rather than reading every single response, which you can do. You can click all responses and read all the feedback that everyone gave. But if you've got a very large scale test, especially if you're in the thousands, you might not have the capacity to do that. You can just focus on the key points that are important to you. These also have an overall sentiment score, so depending on, based on everyone that responded to this question, what's the general sentiment? Was it more negative or more positive? And then finally, we've got AI summaries on all of these. Again, to try and help you understand and make sense of large amounts of data, we try to provide you summaries, which are generated only at the end of the test. So while the test is running, you won't see these, but when the test is finished, you'll see summaries. And there's two places you'll see those. So first of all, you'll see an overall summary here. So if I expand this again, This will give you a top line summary, generally bullet points. Sometimes it'll be headed, but it will try and give you the top line summary of all the feedback that's been submitted from all the questions. So if you just need to know, the top 20 points, good and bad, then you can just look at this summary here and take what you need from it. We also have AI summaries for each individual open text question. So you can see these icons here to view AI summaries. So let's say you just want to look at the summary of all the feedback regarding the tutorial. You can click this option here and just view that summary as well. So this can be really useful if you don't have time to just look at everything or analyze all the data and you just want the top lines. These summaries will be here for you. And yeah, that will be available generally a day or two after the test is finished. These will be generated and updated and shown on your reports. Okay, so I'll scroll down and show you. This is a very typical example of a game test report, and you can see there's a mixture here of multiple choice questions and open text, and you can hover over any of these sections to see precisely how people have responded. Now, under that, you'll see if you've integrated the API and connected your game to our platform, you'll be able to see which data points have been triggered and how often they've been triggered. So you will need to define these yourselves and decide which data points you would like to track. But in this example here, we were tracking how many times players were killed by certain enemies, for example. We got gnomes and ducks here. So if we hover over one of these, we can see that 32 players were killed by a duck, a total of 58 times. So you can decide whether that's accurate or not, or whether that's a good thing, or maybe it's below what you was expecting or above. Or you can even see some data points that are zero, that maybe that's not triggering correctly, maybe an enemy isn't spawning correctly. So this can also be a good indication there's some issue that maybe the player wasn't even aware of, but you can tell from the data points that something isn't quite happening here. The key thing about having the data points in the platform is you can link these to demographics, so you can start to understand maybe people that are having issues or not triggering a certain data point. Look at their demographics, see who they are, where are they from, look at their feedback, try and understand why they're not triggering that data point. So help you kind of understand a little bit more other than just black and white data that a data point was triggered or not. You can start to understand who those people are and maybe why they wasn't triggering that. So again, this is a typical example, and generally around 100 data points is very average for a game, but you can add as many of these as you like. And there's no additional cost for tracking this data. You just got to put that initial time investment to actually integrate the API in advance. But if you don't integrate the API, you see everything else on this report. So you'll see all the feedback, and then under this, you'll see all the demographic information from those users. So you'll be able to see the age profile of the users that took part. You'll be able to see what the gender split was. You'll be able to see the countries that the users were from, and you can expand this and see, generally you'll see a very broad mix of countries, unless you've heavily restricted that in the demographics. You'll be able to see where those users are from. We captured certain things in their profile, so the types of game genres they enjoy playing. Again, you can expand this into lots of different subgenres and see the types of gamers that were taking part. You can see the gaming devices that those users have, their languages that they've added to their profiles, the type of gamer that they've selected. Do they prefer single-player games, multiplayer games? How many hours per week do they game, and even their internet speed, which can be useful for multiplayer games and the like. So that is all captured by default on every report. You'll be able to see that demographic data, and we are adding things to profiles over time, so you may even see additional information and fields get added to this report over time. Now, where this becomes really useful is you can filter and compare any information you like on this report. So let's say we want to compare males and females, for example. Let's say we just want to focus on females. We can click on this section in the report here, and it will add it to this filter over here. I can then click apply that filter to graphs, and it will show me a side-by-side comparison, and I can call this females, for example. So now I can compare the global data on the left versus the filtered data on the right, and see what the key differences were. How did the feedback compare from this group, and make some conclusions off the back of that. We can also, if I clear that, you can remove all the filters and find a question. Maybe there's a question about would you purchase the game? Here we go. Would you consider purchasing this game when it's released? So everyone that answered yes, which was 92 testers in total is potentially a target audience here, potentially customers at the end of the day. So maybe you want to understand a bit more about those guys. Where are they from? What was the feedback they gave? What made them fall into this category and said yes, they would consider buying the game? You can select that option there. Again, that loads it into the filter, and then we can apply that filter and make that comparison. And we'll just call this we'll call them buyers. And then, yeah, we can see did more of those testers complete the tutorials, so maybe they understood the game better. They had more enjoyment out of it because of that, and so that led to selecting that they would be more likely to buy the game. And you can find lots of information like that by just scrolling through these and making side-by-side comparisons. It's so easy to do. Now, you may have a question. I think there's one in here about, how much do you feel like this game should cost when it's released? So if you're making pricing decisions, you probably want to base that on an audience that has said they would consider buying the game versus a mixed audience where some would never consider buying it. So maybe you want to make a decision based on this rather than this, for example. And then you can scroll down and make comparisons to data points. You can make comparisons to demographics and easily try and work out the differences between those two users. So you can add as many filters as you like. You can create new filters. You can have 3, 4, 5 columns and make those comparisons very easy within the platform. Now, you've also, if I clear those quickly, there we go. There's a couple of export options. So if you don't wish to use the report in the platform, first of all, if you just want to share access to this report, you can click up here and generate a link that you can distribute to people. Now, they can click on that link. They can be internal, external, it doesn't matter. They don't need to go and create an account. They don't need to set up a password. They can just click on that link and access the report. You can set a password. You can, if you want to lock it down and then share that link with people and obviously share the password with them, then you can do it that way as well. And you can delete this link and remove access to this report at any time you like. So you've got full control over that. And you can easily share this with anyone. Once they click on that link, they won't be able to access any part of your account. They will only be able to see the report, but it's interactable still. They can still run those filters, and they can still activate it from here. And that's useful when you've got a test that's running, that's live, and you would like some external party to be able to access the report and see it as it's updated. That can be really useful. And then we have an export option as well. So if you just like to export all of the data to Excel and have a kind of raw data dump of all the responses, all the feedback, all the text responses in full, and have everything in there, all the demographics, then you can just click here and that will email it over an Excel version of the report, which of course you can share that if you wish. So yeah, there's various options to access reporting in the platform as well. Okay, and then lastly, let's talk about tests and running tests and ended tests and how they're shown in your account. So if you need to create or if you need to update any tests that are currently being created, you can select this option here and go into these and make changes. If you have any tests running, you'll see them in this step here. If you want to create any test groups, so this is useful if you are running lots of tests maybe and you want to group them together and track progress, then you can select this option here. You can see here I've created groups, which you can do by clicking up here, and then you can add tests to those groups. So for example, you want to track all the tests within a specific quarter, you can create a group, add the test that you want to add, which you can then track the status and progress of each of those tests, which is really useful if you just want to have an overall picture of how tests are doing, how your testing program is progressing and how far you are to completing that. This is a very good way of doing that. You've only got to set up the group once, add the test once, and then you can just come back to this page at any time and easily have that top view of how everything's going. Test templates allows you to create a template, so an initial version of your test to help you create tests in the future, so you don't have to create them from scratch every time. So if I go into an example of one of these, and when you're viewing these, by the way, if you want to make sure you don't make any changes or mistakes, you can just view it in read-only mode. But if you want to be able to edit, you just click this option here, and then this is similar to the test setup creation, except this is essentially creating a template which you can then use as a starting point for future tests in the future. Now, this doesn't have to be fully done. There can be steps that are missing or not done yet, because maybe that needs to be defined at a later point. Maybe you don't know, how many testers you want at this point, or you don't know what the specific demographics are going to be, but you know everything else. You can add all of this and build it out so it's 95% complete, for example. Then when you go to create a new test, you'll see here that you can select one of those templates, and it will create it 90% or 95% done. You just need to go in there, add the bits that are missing, and then you can submit. So it really speeds up that process. If you're testing the same game multiple times, that's a great way of doing it. And from this page, you'll be able to see how many times each of those templates has been used as well. And you can also, right from this page here, click this option to create a test using this template from here. So it's really easy to do. And yeah, we definitely recommend doing that when needed. And then ended, we've got any tests that are fully finished, that are wrapped up, that have met their completion target. You'll be able to see them here in the platform, and you can at any time go back into the wizards if you want to look at the setup and see how previous tests were run, and you can obviously view the reports from here as well, so they'll be available in your account. And if you want to make a copy of any of these, you can just clone from here as well. That'll make a 100% copy. You can obviously go in and make changes, make any amends you need to before submitting. But that's, again, a really quick way of repeating a test, maybe making a few small changes and then submitting it, all within a matter of minutes. It's very easy to do. Okay, that's pretty much everything in the report. I'll talk a little bit about pricing and credit up here. So by default, you'll need to load credit to your account. So once you can make an account for free, you can set up the test for free, and you'll be able to see what the cost of that test is before you submit. But you'll need to have, let's say the test costs $500, you'll need to have $500 loaded into your account before you submit. And then once we approve the test, we take those funds and then we distribute them to the testers at the end as they complete. Now, if you have a company and you want to apply for credit, that's also possible by clicking up here. Just fill in this form, give us your company details. That goes through an approval process, normally only takes a couple of days. If that's approved, then you will no longer need to preload credit. We'll essentially approve any tests that are submitted, and then at the end of each month, you'll just get an invoice for any tests that have completed. So yeah, if you're just starting out and you want to maybe test the platform out, you can preload funds, but at some point you may want to apply for credit by selecting here. Okay, and that's pretty much the whole platform. Hopefully that was useful to get a general overview of how it works and how to make the most of it. Please feel free to set up and run a test. We only have a minimum test size of 10, so if you'd like to just run a really small test to try out the platform before scaling up, we're more than happy for you to do that and see if you're happy with the results at the end of it. But yeah, if you have any questions or anything is not clear, please reach out to our support. We're very happy to help you and help you set up your tests, especially those first few ones, to help you get your head around the platform and get the most out of it, essentially. But thank you. Thanks for your time and good luck.